Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I want to show you guys how I used a paper clip to fix my entire heating system. That sounds pretty strange. Before I even begin, there's a lot of background that's going to go into this. So first I'm going to show you guys the heating system and basically show you what I did, and then come back here and show you how I actually fixed the broken part. So let's start in the basement. So you may recall back around 2013, the cost of oil was really expensive. Now what we had was a boiler that was installed in our house in 1987. As you can imagine, it's not very efficient. It's always questionable. I thought it was going to break down any minute, and that really isn't the way to live. Never mind the fact that what I recall, heating oil was about $5 a gallon. It wasn't working. So we had to come up with something else. We don't have any natural gas on this street because we live on a country road. Propane wasn't any more of an attractive option because it was really expensive at the time. We had some wood stoves and wood was working for us, but it wasn't heating the whole house. So someone introduced me to the idea of a replacement boiler for our oil boiler that uses wood pellets. And I looked into it, and a friend of mine has a heating and air conditioning business. He installs these things. He had like 4 or 5 installs by the time I talked to him. So we liked the idea. The problem is that it was a very expensive install. I mean, it was going to be like $19,000 all told, because you had to buy the unit, you had to buy the storage thing that the pellets go in. I'll show you that in a minute. And all the other related stuff that goes with it. But the good news is that the state of New Hampshire had a rebate program for programs that use renewable resources. Solar is one of them. We didn't really explore that, but what we needed to accomplish was how to heat our house. Our house isn't efficient enough for geothermal, so wood pellet boiler it is. So what they did, they had to remove the oil boiler and apparatus and everything, obviously. So that right there is where the oil inlet was, and they made the opening bigger, and they put in this long tube. What happens is the pellet truck shows up, hooks up a hose to it, and uses air to push the pellets from the truck through a tube into the hopper, and I'll show you that next. Give you guys a better look at what this thing is. Now, that's where the oil inlet was, and that's the tube that came out. Haven't fixed that yet, and that's our water meter. Anyway, so the truck hooks up a good sized hose to this thing. This releases it, and I don't know, I think that says something in another language, obviously not made in the United States. But a giant hose goes onto this, and it's a pretty stout system. You'll see the rest in a minute. So here's the other side of where we just were. You can see the pipe right here. The truck hooks up to it, starts blowing the pellets in, and the pellets take this journey along, and it keeps going all the way along into the top of a 3.1 ton hopper. As you'll hear in a second, you'll hear the first auger is slowly drawing the pellets up to this point and drops them into the burner. One of the more common questions I get is whether or not we're happy with our pellet boiler. And for the most part, yes. And that's primarily because even though the price of oil went down, it is still more affordable to heat our house with pellets. But it does come with a cost. Like, for example, there's a certain amount of maintenance that has to be done on this thing. Every now and then, one of the igniters goes, and that has to be replaced. It's a normal service item. I mean, you know, an igniter, it's going to go from time to time. About every 1,000 pounds or so of pellets, we have to clean the ashes out. And, you know, just got to remember to do that, or else get a polite reminder, hey, it's time to clean out the ashes. And the other thing is, at the bottom of the hopper, there's a clean out thing, because with pellets comes a lot of dust. All the dust likes to settle at the bottom of the hopper, and if you get a little moisture in there, like we found out last spring when we had some rains, somehow, some way, moisture found its way to the bottom of this thing, and it turned all the dust in there into what was basically a wood pellet brick, and I had to get in there with a screwdriver and a hammer basically and try to chip that thing out of there. Oh God, I hope I never have to do that again. That was awful. I mean, it was there for a long time, but it's all a learning experience. And the nice thing about it is, even though it has these hassles, and it's not as easy as just turning up the thermostat. Well, there is that, but I mean, it's not just as simple as that. There's a little more. One of the reasons we did this was because we feel that moving away from fossil fuels was the right thing to do, and we still think that. Now, if we keep having problems with this thing, and the company that made this, like I said, went out of business, and we can't get replacement parts, we may have to go back to some sort of fossil fuel, but I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because let's just hope this works. I'd really like to not have to go through that whole thing again. Like I said, there was a very, very big upfront cost with this, and I don't want to just have to eat that. I'd rather make this work. Now, as you can see, the auger comes up, falls into the burner right here. There's a second auger that pushes the pellets into the burner. So I'm going to take off the compressor hose. The compressor hose is there because when it shuts down, it shoots a blast of air through here to get the dust off everything. I'm going to take this off. This is all the electronic stuff. And there it is. So this is the auger motor right here. You've got 4 screws, and then you've got these 4 wires that go into this terminal block. What you want to do before you start is make sure you grab some tape and mark off which one goes where. Each one of these has a different designation, of course. That is a huge time saver when it comes time to put this thing back together. So these 4 things, pull it out, and there's an auger attached to the shaft. But I'm not going to take it apart now, but that's basically how you do it. It's not hard to do at all, really. And the other thing I wanted to show you is the housing itself, the burner assembly. To take this thing off, you want to pop this off. Okay, that's the thing where the pellets come down. You can see the dust coming out. Then there's 2 wing nuts, one here and one on the other side. You simply undo those, slide the whole assembly out, and you can work on it much more comfortably than lying on the ground here. So the other thing I wanted to show you is the assembly itself looks like it comes apart in 2 pieces, and that's important because of what I'm going to show you in a little bit. So here's the part in question. Took it right off, like I showed you. Here's the tape I was telling you about. This is such a headache saver. If you haven't already gotten the tape, get it right now. Don't even wait, because if you're like me, you're going to say, "Oh, I'll remember which one goes to what," and no, it doesn't work that way. So that was a huge hassle saver for me. So I wasn't sure what to do and how to approach this thing, and I was talking to a friend of mine who just sold his technology business. He's pretty much one of the smartest guys I know. I'm describing the problem to him, and there's a lot of unknowns. And he said, "Well, did you take the motor apart? What did it look like?" And I said, "Well, I wasn't planning on it." He says, "Well, it's already broken. I mean, you're not going to break anything, so you may as well take a look." I'm like, I could probably learn something new anyway, so yeah, why not? So I wasn't sure what to make of this thing, so I started studying it, and then I realized this is a very large C-clip that's holding the assembly together. So in order to take that apart, I used a pair of pliers. I have to get under it with a screwdriver, right in there. I don't know if that's going to fit, but it's easier the first few times. When I did this the last few times, it hasn't been as easy. Now you've got to be careful, because you want to be careful to keep your hands clear from there, because I learned on the first time that that's a very uncomfortable place to have your finger if the thing snaps, and it did the first time. Lucky I wasn't bleeding. But so I'm going to pinch this together, try to get under it. I bet there's a better tool to do this. There we go. All right, well, that was work. Made that look a lot harder than it was. So, as you can see, this just slides right out. This is the magnet. The wires go in. It's kind of heavy. You can see how thick that wall is. This is the part that spins. About 1400 RPM, I think. And you can see how they all work together. So you have 3 different spindles that take this from 1400 RPM down to 7 RPM. Now this is what drives the auger, like I showed you. So we start in the middle, go to this spindle, it goes to this spindle, gears it down to this one. This is the one that makes final contact with the shaft, where that runs the auger. So if you look real close, oh, it's not doing it now. If you look real close, it spins this way. The disconnect is between this one and that one. This is the direction that it spins because the auger spins this way. Go the other way, makes the connection. The reason is, if you spin it in the correct direction, watch that spindle. Watch how that likes to drift away from it. Spin it this way, it pushes it towards it, and that's what turns it. So we need to get that thing to hold still. What I ended up doing, I'm going to take the paper clip. I guess this room's not little. Old house, surprise. Start with this. We want just the thickness of that top plate to bend down, because that's what we want to shim. We want to shim that much. That's where we want it. And now what I'm going to do is, to hold it in place, I'm going to wrap it around that screw and tighten that screw. Holding it in place with my thumb, as you can see. There we go. Make sure that doesn't go anywhere. Before we go on, let's see if it works. Spin this way, spinning, spin that way. Yep. You can see it moving. And then this way. Of course, it only has to move one way, but it's good if it works. See how that's pushing that back there? That's what we need. And behold. Now, the first time I did this, I got it to last just a few hours short of an entire week, and I was surprised it was a lot longer than I was expecting it to. But it did go. I had to do it again, and it did fail. Of course, I had to do it a few times until I got the replacement. So, as you can see, these spindles are that size. Look how much bigger that hole is and how much smaller that spindle is. That wasn't like that when I first did this. I think that's from wear. So, now the rest is kind of easy. Put it back together. Let's see, this was here. Okay, this was the top. Yeah, the spindle goes in the bottom. So where the wires are on this is the opposite of where that spindle is. So that tab goes in there. Make sure it's down nice and tight. Okay. Now, we got to put the C-clip back. Ordinarily, that would get in the way, but fortunately for us, it doesn't do a full circle. I wonder if I did this. Probably put it on backwards the first time. I'll just do this. So there is room for it. One time, when it went, I tried to get cute. I tried to put one on that screw, and then to further hold it in place, come across and put it to that screw, but it failed right away. That didn't work. So, put this back on. Probably come close to losing my finger again. This is usually easier to do. Yeah, there we go. All together. It's not moving. You can kind of hear it. Yep, it's got the gears. And put it all back together. So the one that you saw on there that I just showed you, it wasn't this one obviously. That's a replacement one. Even though the company's out of business and I can't get a true replacement anymore, the company that installed our boiler came across, they acquired a burner assembly taken from another one. For whatever reason, it didn't work anymore. They replaced it outright, and this was still working. So the one that you saw on there is the one that they gave me. Now what happened was, the only replacement I could find was from a company in Denmark. So not a word of their website was in English, but I figured it's what I needed because, you know, it's all the other things were pointing to that direction. I had to use Translate to see what it said. So I ordered it, and the money came out of my account. A few days later, it looked like the money was put back, and it had the appearance that the order was canceled. And I was going to have to keep doing this until that one that you saw came available, and I didn't even know about that at the time. So they got me the replacement. I put that on. It's been working ever since. A few days later, what comes in the mail? Here's the replacement. Look how it's different. So the bolt pattern is the same, but the screws that would mount this to the burner assembly aren't going to be long enough, obviously, to go all the way through. Problem number one. Problem number two is the screws that are there are basically holding this whole thing together. So they've gone from a really dumb design to an even dumber design. So what I'm going to have to do, if the other one goes, what I'm going to have to do is take the burner assembly apart entirely, like I kind of showed you a little while ago. Go from the inside all the way through and put on these, and they did ship with these screws, go all the way through and then mount it that way. Actually, it's going to go this way. And then hope that it doesn't work. But according to the specs on this, 220 volts, 50-60 hertz, 18 watts, and 9 RPM. It's a little faster, but it just has to spin the auger, feed the pellets. So I'm dreading the day when I have to do that, but at least I'm not going to be left high and dry. So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Hoping this helped some of you. I'm sure that I'm not the only person who's running into this, because I mean, you know, I've sold quite a few of these things, and I can't have the only lemon. So hit that like button if you enjoyed what you saw, and subscribe if you haven't already. And as the adventure continues with this boiler, I'll bring you guys up to date. Thanks. So in order to take that apart, just a pair of pliers. I have to get under it with a screwdriver. And in there, I don't know if it's going to fit, but it's easier the first few times. When I did this the last few times, it hasn't been as easy. Now you got to be careful, because you want to be careful to keep your hands clear from there, because I learned on the first time that that's a very uncomfortable place to have your finger if the thing snaps, and it did the first time. Lucky I wasn't bleeding. But so I'm going to pinch this together. Try to get under it. Yeah.